Chapter 1073. The crowd automatically opened up a path for her as they stared at her with complicated gazes. Ever since Jing Yunjiao became Mo Zhengyan's student, there wasn't a single student in the sinology department who wasn't envious of her. She had also become the idol of many of the younger students. An all-round goddess of studying, her body was naturally filled with positive energy. But now, that energy had already exploded to the point where it was unreachable. In the past, they thought that she came from a poor background. At least in this aspect, many people were better than her. But now, how could they compare? Their university had Shu Yu and young Master Yu, so many people had heard of Mayor Shu. But many people had heard of him for 3 or 4 years, but they had never seen the Mayor Shu come to the school specifically for Shu Yu. But with just a phone call from Jing Yunjiao, the Mayor Shu actually came. It seemed like he doted on his niece very much. Everyone had different feelings, but most of them were envious. Jing, your uncle just said that you run 2 companies. What's going on? On the way to class, Hu Tianxian couldn't help but ask. Just, literally. I have 2 companies under me. One is in the wine industry, and the other is in the pharmaceutical industry. Both of them are doing well, Jing Yunjiao said with a dry laugh. In the past 2 days, Pak Yuan and Qin Shui had told her that during the birthday party, the 2 of them wanted to announce her identity in front of everyone. But they didn't expect so many things to happen at that time, so the 2 of them decided not to say anything at the last minute. Anyway, the company wouldn't run away. Maybe one day, when the 2 of them were in a good mood, they would tell the truth to the media. Of course, this wouldn't take too long. Recently, Pak Yuan had begun to arrange some procedures for the transfer of the company. With such a big movement, it was hard for others not to know. The pharmaceutical industry was under the military's control from the beginning, so the company was hers. There was no need to change it. Hu Tianxian was stunned. She suddenly tugged at Jing Yunjiao. Jing, can you repeat that? Companies. I have 2 businesses under me. Jing Yunjiao was also a little confused because Hu Tianxian's reaction was too big. At this moment, Hu Tianxian's face, which had always been proud, was somewhat distorted. She had a complicated expression on her face. She grabbed her arm and looked her up and down. Can you tell me the name of your company? Could one of them be Yunling Medical Company? After the birthday party that day, she heard her father mention that Jing Yunjiao and the CEO of Yunling Medicine had come out together and donated 80 million yuan to charity. Therefore, at the mention of pharmaceutical companies, the one that came to her mind was the most promising one. Although it was a new company, the military had a stake in it. No one in the business world dared to have any ideas about that company. In private, it was said that most of the drugs that the military needed in the future would be provided by Yunling. This company would definitely be more powerful than the Hu Corporation in the future. However, when it came to the wine industry, Hu Tianxian thought for a moment. She remembered that on the day of her birthday party, that idiot boss fan had accused Jing Yunjiao of having an affair with Pak Yuan. That Pak Yuan seemed to be the boss of some wine industry. After a few seconds, Hu Tianxian narrowed her eyes and asked tentatively, the other one, is Yuling Wine? Hu Tianxian, Yarrow Baobao, and Ren Xingyue were all waiting for her to tell the truth. Each one was more nervous than the other. That's right. Jing Yunjiao nodded. As soon as Jing Yunjiao admitted it, Hu Tianxian and the other 2's hearts skipped a beat. The corners of their mouths twitched. Jing Yunjiao, you're really hiding your strength. I'm convinced. This time, I'm really convinced. Your martial arts, your learning, your background, your ability, and even your looks and aura, I can't compare to you. Hu Tianxian said sincerely after holding it in for a while. Chapter 1074. Hu Tianxian's eyes revealed a trace of shock and admiration. She wanted to pry open Jing Yunjiao's head to see if there was any difference between his brain structure and hers. Hu Tianxian had always been admired by others, but this time, she was truly shocked by Jing Yunjiao. She was the dignified daughter of the Hu family and the only successor of the Hu family. She had learned some management skills from her parents a long time ago. Managing a company was not difficult for her, but it depended on how far she wanted to expand the company. Her current qualifications were only enough to maintain the Hua family's current status, and she might even regress. Moreover, if her subordinates were to be dishonest, she might be thrown into a panic. The Hua Corporation, a business passed down from her ancestors, was already so difficult to control. Jing Yunjiao, on the other hand, actually had 2 businesses in his hands. When did you establish Yuling Wines? Hua Tianxian asked. When I was in high school. Almost 3 years ago, Jing Yunjiao answered honestly. Hua Tianxian immediately fell silent. She felt as if her intelligence had been severely insulted. You're a pervert, Hua Tianxian pursed her lips and said, then, other than these 2 companies, do you have any other businesses? Do I have to tell you everything? Jing Yunjiao frowned and asked. These 3 simple words made Hua Tianxian's mouth twitch violently. Based on her tone, it seemed as if she had a lot of businesses in her hands. But if that was the case, was she still a human? Even if a person had 3 heads and 6 arms, it was impossible for them to do this, right? However, her companies were all managed by someone else. Jing Yunjiao was really cool to just leave everything to someone else. There was probably no other woman in the world who was more open-minded than her. If you treat us as friends, then tell me all at once, Hua Tianxian said. Yarrow Baobao and Ren Xingyue quickly nodded. I also run a tea house, but I've registered the company now. The scale is still relatively small. In addition, I've contracted a lot of land to grow some fruits and vegetables without pesticides. I provide ingredients for a chain restaurant. The restaurant tastes very good, and it currently has a branch in the capital. However, because I haven't been here for very long, it's not very famous, but the taste is definitely not bad. The owner of the restaurant is the descendant of the imperial chef. There's more. Yarrow Baobao's eyes went blank. The last one is Aunt Tong's beauty salon. Jing Yunjiao comforted her with a smile. Hua Tianxian felt a little dizzy. She couldn't believe that Jing Yunjiao had done so much by himself. You're a doctor, Hua Tianxian murmured. She recalled how Jing Yunjiao had given Ren Xingyue's uncle a prescription after the birthday party. Yes. Jing Yunjiao nodded. The Dr. Jing that the media reported cured Aunt Tong's illness was also you. Hua Tianxian muttered again. At this moment, her aura of a rich missy had withered. She looked like a frosted eggplant, full of hidden bitterness. Jing Yunjiao was actually a little embarrassed. Everything she had was because of the space. Therefore, when she mentioned these things, she didn't have much confidence. Although the space was passed down from her ancestors, she had a much higher starting point than others. Because of this, she had a tight control over the income of the pharmaceutical company. The price of the drugs was not set particularly high. She had also discussed with Qin Shui that she would allocate funds to charity every year as a form of repayment for doing good deeds. Jing Yunjiao continued to nod. When Yarrow Baobao heard this, she suddenly rushed over and shouted, Jing Jing, you're my idol. I admire you so much. Chapter 1075. Yarrow Baobao's entire body pounced on him. Jing Yunjiao was indeed squeezed by the 2 lumps in front of her chest, and a faint blush appeared on his face. Although Yarrow Baobao was a cute little sister-type girl, her figure could definitely be described as fiery. It was just that she was slightly shorter, or else it would be even more shocking. Although my parents dote on me a lot, they already said that in the future, our family business will be inherited by my 3 brothers. I will just be responsible for getting married, and being as beautiful as a flower will be enough. When the time comes, they will definitely find me a good man who will love and dote on me for the rest of my life. I already wanted to be a qualified riceworm, but now that Jing Jing is so amazing, I'm so moved. Listen, my heart thumps, thumps. Yarrow Baobao's eyes were filled with red hearts. She worshipped women like Jing Yunjiao, who could build a career without relying on others. But she was destined to be unable to do so. Although she studied business management, in reality, her parents had let her dawdle. In the future, when she entered the company, she would casually stay in a position, then take a dowry and rely on her future husband for the rest of her life. This was the future she had always thought of, but now, she wanted to see some changes. Even if she couldn't build her own company like Jing Yunjiao, She should be able to work hard to gain her parents' approval in the future, right? To prove that she wasn't that obedient and incompetent little girl who only knew how to act spoiled and cute. At this time, Yarrow Baobao's heart was fantasizing, but she held on to Jing Yunjiao tightly and refused to let go. The four of them had already arrived downstairs, and the people around them couldn't help but want to laugh. Jing Yunjiao's face was so red that Hu Tianxian felt a little better. She really didn't dare to believe that Jing Yunjiao, who would blush when being teased by a woman, could actually do such a thing. There were still many years to come, and it seemed that there would be more shocks in the future. Letting out a breath, Hu Tianxian patted Jing Yunjiao's shoulder. Jing I heard that your company's wine is very good. In the future, I will definitely order a few more boxes of it during the holidays. She had long heard that Yu Ling Wine Company's wine was the most popular this year, and the supply couldn't meet the demand. Jing Yunjiao nodded and smiled. Of course, he could handle such a small matter. However, after seeing Yarrow Baobao's reaction, Jing Yunjiao also decided to let Xiao Haiqing and the others know the ins and outs of the matter when they go back tonight. If this matter was dragged on for too long, it would be suspected of deliberately concealing the truth. Luckily, Xiao Haiqing and Chu Chu had known her for a long time, so they probably already had some guesses in their hearts. Even if she told them the truth, the two of them wouldn't be as shocked as Yarrow Baobao, they would only be slightly agitated. The four of them walked slowly. When they returned to the classroom, it was completely silent. Everyone turned their attention to Jing Yunjiao. Obviously, the news had already spread. Jing Yunjiao, I heard that Mayor Shu is your uncle. Is that true? Someone asked after a while. Jing Yunjiao nodded politely. Then young Master Yu is your cousin? Then why did you hit him? Another person asked. At that time, Shu Yu seemed to have wanted to kiss Jing Yunjiao in front of everyone, but he was beaten up until he didn't even look like a human anymore. That was really tragic. Because I didn't know his identity at the time. Jing Yunjiao replied politely, but then he said, class is about to start. Let's go back to our seats. Students, please go back to your seats first. If you have any questions, ask them later. Han Nan said. Jing Yunjiao glanced to the side. Seeing Han Nan's fervent gaze, he frowned and avoided it. Chapter 1076. On the day of the holidays, Han Nan had seen Li Xiaoyun come to pick her up with his own eyes. Logically speaking, he should have restrained himself. But now, it seemed like he hadn't given up yet. Not only that, but his gaze was also much more direct than before. But Jing Yunjiao couldn't go up and cause trouble just because Han Nan looked at her a few more times. Otherwise, in the eyes of others, it would seem like she was imagining things. Now that Jing Yunjiao's identity was revealed, there were many more people who were polite to her. But unlike Shu Yu, everyone felt that Jing Yunjiao was much easier to get along with. Although she usually seemed cold and unapproachable, she never used her position to bully others. She was even more restrained than the other rich young ladies in class. And the classmates who used to only hang around rich young ladies like Hu Tianxian suddenly became a lot more friendly towards her and started looking for opportunities to interact with her. Unfortunately, Jing Yunjiao didn't like strangers being too close to her, so they all kept their distance. Fortunately, although these people wanted to be closer to her, they were also worried about accidentally offending her. So, they didn't do anything that would make her feel disgusted. As for the culprit outside the school, he had already been taken away by the police. Although Jing Yunjiao killed him, she did it so secretly that no one could tell. Not only that, but some people even felt that Jing Yunjiao was extremely lucky. She had dodged all those bottles of strong acid, one by one. Her luck was simply heaven-defying. Moreover, if an ordinary girl were to encounter such a situation, they would have been scared out of their wits. How could they be as calm as she was? So, when everyone returned to the classroom, many teachers began to use Jing Yunjiao as an example to remind the students that they must calmly analyze the situation when in danger, so as to reduce the chances of the bad guys succeeding. Originally, this incident wasn't considered big. After all, there weren't many people at the school gate in the morning. But these teachers helped spread the word about Jing Yunjiao, and for a time, the school was abuzz. Jing Yunjiao's day was extremely lively. It was as if she had become a national treasure, and people came from all over to pay their respects. Of course, there were also people who posted what Shu Yuantarek said in front of everyone. Everyone began to exchange opinions on the internet, debating whether it was true or not. What caught everyone's attention was naturally the fact that Jing Yunjiao was in charge of 2 companies. Even though these words came from Shu Yuanza's mouth, the students only thought that Mayor Shu was trying to boost Jing Yunjiao's reputation. Or rather, even if she really did have a company, it was still a gift from the Shu family. However, Jing Yunjiao didn't care about those comments. He was fully focused on the appraisal. After the afternoon class ended, Jing Yunjiao applied for leave from Mo Zhangyang and went straight to the appraisal center. Judging from what happened today, she felt that She must have some relationship with her first uncle. Otherwise, She would not have ordered people to attack her even though she knew that she knew martial arts. The strong acid might not kill her, but it could ruin her reputation. Since she could not kill her for the time being, she could only use this method. She believed that if Shen Tong had not lived with the Shu family, the victims would have been her and her son. When Jing Yunjiao arrived, the appraisal results had only been out for a few minutes. Shu Yuancheng was originally a little curious, and with Jing Yunjiao's serious and careful expression, it made him even more suspicious. Thus, after thinking about it from left to right, he still opened the document folder to take a look. What he saw made him dumbfounded. Chapter 1077. The name written in the document was actually his eldest brother, Shu Yuantarek, and the owner of the other sample was actually Shen Hong. Jing Yunjiao actually suspected that these 2 people were related by blood. What kind of joke was this? Shu Wancheng was stunned for a moment. Then, he felt that it was a little funny. After secretly shaking his head, he shifted his gaze to the final test results. Suddenly, the image froze, and he was completely speechless. They were actually related by blood. Father and son? How could it be? Shu Wancheng was completely dumbfounded. After thinking for a while, he called Shu Yuantarek and said, "Big brother, have you really never met your sister-in-law before?" "Ian, why are you asking this?" Shu Yuantarek was also confused. He didn't know what was wrong with his younger brother. Shu Wancheng's hand that was holding the document trembled. "Then where did her son come from? Did you have something with her in private? That's why sister-in-law didn't let Shen Tong enter the house all these years. You too." Before he could finish his sentence, Shu Yuantarek hung up the phone with a bang. It was a total mess. Shu Yuantarek rubbed his forehead. He only felt that his younger brother was becoming more and more reckless. Not to mention that he wasn't a lecherous man. Even if he really needed a woman, he wouldn't find someone with the surname Shen, let alone have a son with her. But speaking of which, it was a pity for Shen Hong. On the other end of the phone, Shu Wancheng stared at the phone in a daze for a while. His brows were knitted together. He walked to a restaurant next to the appraisal center and waited for Jing Yunjiao to arrive. The more time passed, the bigger the doubts in his heart became. He couldn't wait for Jing Yunjiao to immediately fly in front of him and explain everything clearly to him. At this moment, when he thought of his own big brother and the Shen sisters' muddled account, he felt speechless. If this spread, it would be bad for his eldest brother's reputation, and it might even affect his future. No matter how good Shen Hong was, if he had the title of an illegitimate child, the Shu family would not accept it. Neither he nor old Master Shu would allow his eldest brother to raise other women and children outside. After all, it was too unruly. Even if she didn't like it, since they were married, they had to follow the bottom line. No matter what, a child born out of wedlock couldn't be exposed to the public. This kind of moral problem would definitely make old Master Shu explode. At that time, his eldest brother's name might really be removed from the Shu family's genealogy. Shu Wancheng waited impatiently, drinking cup after cup of tea. By the time Jing Yunjiao arrived, he could see the small flame on top of his head that had not been extinguished. "Xiao Jiao, what's going on? Are these 2 samples really Big Brother and Shen Hong's?" Shu Wancheng asked anxiously. Jing Yunjiao didn't even have time to sit down. "The results are out. What do you think?" Jing Yunjiao asked and took the things from his second uncle. When he opened it, It was clear at a glance. He wasn't surprised. Seeing Jing Yunjiao's reaction, Xu Wencheng felt that something was wrong. He quickly asked, Xiao Jiao, Big Brother is not this kind of person. Shen Tong is eldest sister-in-law's sister. No matter what, Big Brother can't have an affair with someone close to him, right? Moreover, Shen Hong is the same age as Xu Yu. Shen Tong went abroad a long time ago. If this is true, then didn't Big Brother already have a relationship with Shen Tong before he married Shen Shi? Xu Wencheng found it hard to accept. Although he was usually rude to his eldest brother, in fact, he was raised by him. To him, Xu Yuantarek was both a brother and a father. He would never believe that he would do such a thing. Chapter 1078. Xu Wencheng looked a little nervous. He recalled the scene when he called his elder brother just now. When he said that his elder brother had an affair with Shen Tong, his elder brother was obviously very angry. He would never deliberately hide or lie in front of him. Second uncle, this DNA test was done using their hair samples, there's no way it's fake. Jing Yunjiao took a deep breath and carefully put away the document. That means my elder brother lied to us. He had an affair with Shen Tong. That's impossible. Xu Wencheng's face was gloomy. Second uncle, of course it's not like that. Jing Yunjiao hurriedly said, I chatted with Shen Tong for a while last night. She asked me to help investigate the matter of her being raped and pregnant. In the end, I found out that eldest uncle was also at the party she attended. And it was also at that party that eldest uncle and Shen Shi had an affair. I thought of the reason why Shen Shi didn't let Shen Tong in all these years, so I boldly made a hypothesis. What hypothesis did you make? You suspect that my elder brother and the two of them were. Xu Wencheng's face was a little colorful. Obviously, he didn't want to believe it. Not only that, I also suspect that Shen Shi substituted one person for the other. Jing Yunjiao's expression was serious as she continued, at that time, Shen Tong was locked in a cupboard and couldn't see the light of day for a few hours. It was Shen Shi who found her, so I felt that things were too strange. After all, eldest uncle was drugged and couldn't remember the process. Shen Shi and Shen Tong were wearing almost the same dress. In this case, it was easy to create an illusion. Now that Shen Hong's identity is clear, there are probably only two possibilities. First, as you said, the two of them were with eldest uncle at the same time, and got pregnant. However, Shen Shi woke up early, hid Shen Tong, and sent her abroad. Second, from the beginning, it was only Shen Tong who was with eldest uncle, and Shen Shi found out about it without anyone knowing, so she took over. At that time, many people were celebrating first uncle's promotion at the banquet. It was impossible for Shen Shi not to notice it, so it was normal for her to have evil thoughts. However, if we want to prove the truth, we can only use Xu Yu's sample to do a DNA test. If he isn't eldest uncle's child, then Shen Shi has deceived the Xu family for more than 20 years. Jing Yunjiao's face was solemn. His words made Xu Wencheng's heart sink. If what she said was true, then Shen Shi was really terrifying. Over 20 years, he had actually been acting for so long. Xu Wencheng felt as though there was a huge rock in his heart. At this moment, he really hoped that Xu Yu was not his elder brother's child. After all, it wouldn't sound good if this matter was spread out. If people were to find out that Big Brother had sex with two women at the same time, and that they were sisters, and even gave birth to children at the same time, then Big Brother would be reviled for the rest of his life. The Xu family had always been innocent. The most embarrassing thing they had done was to solve some problems for Xu Yu and deal with the matter of him going through the back door when he was in school. As for Big Brother, he had always paid attention to himself. His attitude and name were always the same, and he was very principled. However, this time, he had really failed miserably. As long as people found out, he wouldn't be able to clear his name even if he jumped into the Yellow River. However, whether this was true or not, it was just a matter of the degree of the impact. After all, he had been married to Shen Shi for more than 20 years. It was already a foregone conclusion. Chapter 1079. Xu Wencheng felt melancholy. He sighed several times before he recovered from the shock. Xiao Jiao, what do you think we should do? Xu Wancheng thought for a moment before he added, if Xu Yu is Big Brother's son, this matter, how should we deal with it? Jing Yunjiao's eyes flashed. Second uncle, do you really want to listen to me? Jing Yunjiao asked vaguely. Of course, Xu Wancheng said immediately. Jing Yunjiao smiled, but there was a bit of ruthlessness in his smile. Shunshi can't be left alive. Whether Xu Yu is Big Uncle's son or not, Shunshi must die. Xu Yu is a brainless person. If his surname is Xu, then it's easy to deal with. It's just a matter of 3 meals a day. Now that he's a cripple, there's no need to worry about him causing any trouble. We just need to find a place to raise him. As for Aunt Tong, she doesn't know that Shen Hong is Big Uncle's child. I asked her. With her temperament, she may not be interested in the position of Mrs. Xu. It's up to her whether she and Big Uncle want to be together or not. Xu Wancheng was shocked. He didn't think that Jing Yunjiao, who always seemed to be isolated from the world, would say such words. His eyes were full of killing intent. He was definitely not joking. Xiao Jiao, you killed someone? If not, he wouldn't say it so calmly. If a person's injury was stained with blood, then her temperament would have a bit of killing intent. It was absolutely different from those simple threats and intimidation. Just like Li Xiaoyun, who looked gentle and elegant, but gave people a dangerous feeling. He could be sure that the reason why he had such temperament was because he had killed too many people. He didn't care about others, but when he thought that his precious niece, a young girl who had just reached adulthood, had killed someone, he felt a little uncomfortable. The restaurant's business wasn't very good. There was no one around. Xu Wancheng's words made people feel that the air was a bit heavy. Second uncle, I just took care of one today. Jing Yunjiao lowered his head and looked at the steam coming out of the cup in front of him. He said softly, if I don't kill others, others will kill me. I'm not as innocent and pure as you think, second uncle. I'm even more scheming than any girl my age. This is a fact. I've never denied it. Whether it's killing or scheming against others, I've always been worthy of myself. Xu Wancheng's heart trembled. Of course, he didn't think that his niece was wrong, but he felt that she had experienced too many things that didn't belong to her age. What's going on today? Did someone attack you? Xu Wancheng suppressed the heartache and asked. Jing Yunjiao nodded. This kind of method without any reason, it's definitely Shen Shi. The culprit is already dead, and his identity has also been investigated. That person likes to gamble and owes a lot of money to loan sharks. I think Shen Shi must have used this point to make him act against me. If he had hurt me back then he would only have to go to jail. There's food and drinks in jail, and he wouldn't have to worry about people coming after him. If someone had promised him a sum of money after he was released, then he would definitely have agreed. It's just that he probably didn't think that I wouldn't give him a chance to live, Jing Yunjiao sneered. Second uncle, I also suspect that there's someone behind Shen Shi, and that person definitely has some power. It's very likely that he's an enemy of first uncle. And if Xu Yu isn't first uncle's son, then he's the son of another man at the banquet. And the people who can attend the banquet are either rich or noble. Jing Yunjiao analyzed again. Chapter 1080. Xu Wancheng nodded after hearing Jing Yunjiao's words. Big Brother already knew that there was someone behind her, but he wasn't sure who that person was. Xu Wancheng replied, no matter what, we still need to know Xu Yu's identity first. You don't have to get involved in this matter. Your uncle is in the Xu family. Isn't it easy to get something from Xu Yu? Also, about Shen Hong. After Xu Yu's results are out, we'll tell Big Brother and your grandfather. Xu Wancheng was very thoughtful. Instead of being hit several times in a row, it was better to take it all at once. After all, even an outsider like him was shocked, not to mention Big Brother, the person involved. Jing Yunjiao agreed with this. The two of them went home together. After being affected by this fact, the two of them found Shen Hong more pleasing to the eye. As for Xu Yu, ever since his legs were not good for walking, he looked a lot gloomier. When the two of them came back, Xu Yu was holding an airgun and shooting continuously into the air. When Jing Yunjiao saw this, his face immediately darkened. He saw He Di jumping around the trees in front of the door to dodge the airgun bullets. Although it was an airgun, it was still lethal. There were marks left on the trees, so it was needless to say what the result would be if the bullets hit He Di. When Jing Yunjiao appeared, He Di quickly flew to her shoulder and locked onto her neck with an aggrieved look. In the next moment, Shu Yu aimed the airgun again, but this time, the person he was going to shoot was Jing Yunjiao. With a pu sound, the bullet flew directly over. When the people around saw this, they were instantly shocked. Jing Yunjiao's face was cold. In the blink of an eye, he raised his hand and gathered his qi. He directly held the airgun bullet in his palm and threw it back at Shu Yu. Instantly, the bullet hit Shu Yu's wrist. In pain, the airgun fell to the ground. Jing Yunjiao walked over. "Cousin, you're already so old. Why are you bullying He Di? I'm the young master of the Shu family. Can't I even play with a stupid crow? I'm a human and it's a beast. Why can't I kill it?" Shu Yu roared as he clutched his wrist. "You're an animal. You're a beast," Black Sovereign retorted. These words gave Shu Yu a fright. Even Shu Wancheng was taken aback. Ever since Jing Yunjiao went on vacation, He Di had been placed in the Shu family's care. Usually, he lived with Jing Yunjiao. Sometimes, when he took a few glances at the raven, he felt that it was very imposing. The purple-gold flowing light that its feathers emitted was very domineering. However, this bird had a strange temper. Usually, it was only intimate with Jing Yunjiao. It didn't even taste the food that others fed it and rarely called out. Therefore, it was impossible not to be surprised when he suddenly spoke human language. You see, even a beast knows how to scold people. "Jing Yunjiao, what do you take me for? Even if I'm a cripple, I'm still your cousin. Everything in the Shu family will be mine in the future. Who do you think you are?" Shu Yu had already shed all pretenses of cordiality with Jing Yunjiao. He knew that the Shu family wouldn't do anything to him, so he simply went crazy. Jing Yunjiao stared at him coldly. He Di seemed to feel Shu Yu's malice towards Jing Yunjiao. Suddenly, he flapped his wings and rushed over. He viciously grabbed Shu Yu's neck with his claws. As he soared into the air, a few shocking bloody scratches appeared on Shu Yu's neck. Red blood instantly flowed down. He Di was often placed in Jing Yunjiao's space to be reared. He drank the space's blue spring water and ate the space's medicinal seeds and other living creatures. He would even go to the space's pond to catch fish to eat. Naturally, his attack power was not weak. Chapter 1081. Not only were there medicinal insects and plants in the space, but Jing Yunjiao had also placed some livestock, medicinal animals, and even snakes, insects, rats, and ants in the space. The space was so large that it was almost a new world. Every time He Di entered the space, he would fly around and fight with poisonous snakes, medicinal snakes, and other dangerous creatures. Every time, he would come back victorious. Before Jing Yunjiao came, He Di did not attack Shu Yu. He was probably just teasing Shu Yu. Otherwise, he would have pecked Shu Yu to death. At this time, Shu Yu was injured again. Feeling the blood flowing from his neck, his face changed. "You dare to let your beast scratch me?" Shu Yu was going crazy, and his eyes were full of anger. "In this family, I can't even compare to a beast." Good, second uncle, you just watched her use her beast to kill me. You won't be satisfied if I don't die, right? Shu Wancheng frowned. You knew that He Di was Xiao Zhao's pet, but you deliberately wanted to kill him with money. Why can't you recognize your mistake? The more he looked at Shu Yu, the more he didn't look like his eldest brother's son. In the past, he had his suspicions as to why Shu Yu seemed to have an innate lustful nature. Their Shu family was very attentive to the education of their children, and for generations, there had never been such a person. How could they have raised such a person under the strong pressure of their father and elder brother? Now, he suddenly understood. Either he inherited Shun Shi's bad habits, or he was not a descendant of the Shu family. I'm not wrong. You're the ones who are wrong. You've always looked down on me and made me learn those messy things since I was young. What era is this? You still talk about propriety, justice, integrity, and shame. You always use the family rules and ancestral teachings to suppress me. You even make me read scriptures. Am I a monk? Why should I read scriptures? I just like women. I didn't kill anyone. You and my father beat and scolded me and sent me to a place like Heiju. Do you know what kind of life I had there? Do you know that I could die at any time? Alright, I made it through and came back with all my limbs intact, but what about you guys? I watched as my father crippled my leg for the sake of a bitch. I won't be able to walk anymore. Are you happy now? Jing Yunjiao, you are a jinx. Before you came, everything was fine. It was you and your friends who caused me to be like this. You caused my mother to be bullied by my father. Why didn't a little bitch like you die outside? Shu Yu pointed his blood-stained finger at Jing Yunjiao and kept shouting. His blood-red eyes were so terrifying that the servants didn't dare to raise their heads. She didn't seem to be at home. Otherwise, she would have rushed up to protect her calf. Shen Tong and Shen Hong were there, but they were stopped more than 10 meters away by the servants. It was obvious that Shu Yu had ordered them not to interfere with his bird hunting. After all, the two of them were guests, and Shu Yu was still the young master of the Shu family. It was normal for the servants to listen to him. So it's nothing if no one dies. Wasn't it wrong to play with women? Cousin, you've really opened my eyes. Jing Yunjiao sneered. I'm also glad that I didn't die outside. But since I'm back, I won't allow you to behave atrociously. The reputation of the Shu family and the inheritance of the Shu family can't fall on someone like you. If it doesn't fall on me, then should you inherit it? Your surname is Jing. Maybe even your surname is fake. You're the child of your mother and a wild man. You're just a bastard. How can you be worthy? Chapter 1082. Shu Yu's eyes were filled with hatred. He spoke without thinking. At this moment, he only hoped that the Jing Yunjiao in front of him would completely disappear. He even hated himself for being so weak. If he wasn't a cripple, if his father and second uncle were on his side, he could make Jing Yunjiao live a life worse than death. No. He wanted this wild girl who always acted high and mighty in front of him to crawl at his feet, beg for mercy, cry, and lick his feet. However, the reality was the exact opposite. As soon as he called her a bastard, Jing Yunjiao reached out and grabbed his neck. In an instant, she exerted force. It was as if the bones in his neck could be heard cracking, making people's hearts ache. It was the first time Shu Wancheng saw this niece of his so ruthless. She exuded a dark aura, as if she was a soul reaper who had crawled out from hell. At that moment, that gaze seemed to want to pull Shu Yu's life out of his body. He watched as his face turned purple and his limbs twitched because of suffocation, but he couldn't stop it in time. However, Jing Yunjiao wasn't stupid enough to kill him in front of everyone. Seeing that he had fainted after struggling for a while, she let go. At the side, there was a young female servant who had fainted from fright. That bang sound finally stopped. Jing Yunjiao indifferently turned her head to take a look. She saw that everyone was looking at her with a trace of fear. Because Shu Yu didn't react, these people probably thought that she had really strangled her cousin to death. Xiao Jiao. Shu Wancheng was also at a loss. He didn't expect her aura to be so terrifying. It's nothing. He just fainted. Jing Yunjiao said. When Shu Wancheng heard this, he let out a sigh of relief. He wasn't afraid of killing people, as long as they deserved to be killed. However, Shu Yu was Jing Yunjiao's cousin. No matter what he did, Jing Yunjiao couldn't kill him in front of so many people. Otherwise, there would be countless troubles in the future. Get someone to send him back to his room. Shu Wancheng said. Send him to the empty storeroom in the backyard and lock the door. Jing Yunjiao said. She had made a move on her, so she would first get some interest back from her son. She wouldn't be soft on people like Shu Yu. These servants were all indifferent and a little nervous. Jing Yunjiao sneered. Second uncle, many of our servants have been employed for many years, right? I think it's time to change them. She had also suddenly remembered something. Since she had just returned to the Shu family, she had occasionally felt some hostility towards her from some of the servants. However, she had suddenly reunited with her relatives, so it was understandable that they had some opinions in their hearts. However, it seemed that these people sometimes even looked at her first uncle with a bit of blame, as if they were speaking up for Shunxi's injustice. Thinking about it carefully, Shunxi had been in the Shu family for more than 20 years. She had always been so kind and gentle, so many servants would definitely respect and be grateful to her. There were many people in this world who valued righteousness. Maybe someone would do something for Shunxi. Therefore, it was necessary to thoroughly clean up. When Jing Yunjiao said this, everyone's faces turned pale. They no longer looked at her as if they were looking at a young girl, but more like they were looking at a vicious monster. At this time, he was receiving a salary from the Shu family, so he still had to do his job. Soon, Shu Yu was sent to the backyard. The whole Shu family kept quiet out of fear. You are employees hired by the Shu family, so you must have signed an agreement. If you secretly spread the news about the Shu family, I think you know what the consequences will be. Don't think that the Shu family won't find out what you have done. Also, let me give you a piece of advice. What you see with your eyes may not be true. The people you think are weak may be the wolves, tigers, and leopards. If you are used by others, then not only do you have no vision, but you are also stupid. You don't have to worry about this. I know that if I go too far, I will break. Shenhong's eyes were like cold stars. He was the best at being flexible. The only thing he wasn't good at was the local customs. However, his learning spirit was still very strong. In the future, he should be able to be like her uncle. Jing Yunjiao restrained her expression, smiled, and then went back upstairs. After entering the room, she immediately closed the door and went to the dimension to calm her heart. As expected, she wasn't tough enough. She had only killed someone who wanted to harm her, but after she did it, she felt disgusted with herself. It reminded her of her previous life, when she held a knife with both hands covered in blood. She recalled the feeling of panic, fear, and relief at that time. Her state of mind was not enough. The internal energy circulated throughout her body, and her mind was thinking about the martial arts of the spirit jade. Little by little, she became calmer and calmer. Next to the stone table in the dimension, peach blossoms fell and moved with the wind from her palm. It was a beautiful scene. Chapter 1084. When Jing Yunjiao stopped, the surroundings were silent. Hei Di and Space Xiao Lan flew in front of her to show their affection. Her eyes were firm, and her whole spirit was refreshed. She had stayed in the space for more than 10 hours, but only 2 hours had passed in the outside world. When she came out, Shunxi had just come back and was making a scene downstairs. At this time, her whole person was not angry, and she looked much calmer. After changing her clothes, she went downstairs and met Shunxi's murderous eyes. The beauty's skin was being torn apart little by little. Yunjiao, I heard that your bird grabbed Yuer's neck, right? You even choked him until he fainted? Shunxi asked directly, no longer restraining herself. That's right. Jing Yunjiao also calmly replied, looks like it's just as I said, there are some people in the family who speak faster than others. They've already told Auntie Shen every single detail. Are you treating my and second uncle's words like wind passing by your ears? Don't blame others, I forced you to answer. Shunxi clenched her teeth and continued, it's just a bird. If Yuer killed it, then so be it. Moreover, you didn't even hurt a single feather and yet you're already so heavy-handed towards Yuer. Yunjiao, aren't you being too vicious? Cousin said that I was a bastard, and I felt uncomfortable when I heard that. Aunt Shen, did you feel comfortable when you heard that? Jing Yunjiao snorted and asked. Shunxi's heart felt stifled. That's because he was angry and said something wrong. Yunjiao, how have I wronged you? Since you came back, I served you well. You didn't like to call me aunt, so I endured it. I listened to everything you wanted to do. What else are you dissatisfied with? It's fine if you are against me, but why did you bully Yuer? He is not as spoiled as you, but he is still a legitimate child of the Shu family. His parents are still alive. What do you think we are? So indifferent. Shouldn't she continued to ask. The servants in the house didn't even dare to breathe loudly. Xu Wencheng wanted to speak for Jing Yunjiao, but as a man, it was not appropriate for him to argue with his sister-in-law. Moreover, he did not think that Jing Yunjiao would suffer in her hands at this time. Shun Shi, a straightforward person, doesn't resort to insinuations. You were the one who sent that idiot who wanted to splash sulfuric acid on me, weren't you? Do you want to know how he died? Jing Yunjiao didn't answer, but continued to ask. Let me guess what you promised him. You promised to pay him back. Tell him that he would be released after a few years in prison, and that there would be a sum of money for him to play around with. It's a pity that even before he died, he didn't realize that he didn't have that fate. Shun Shi, you're just an ordinary person. I don't believe that your life is more important than that of the hooligan who tried to harm me. Let's see who will end up killing who in the end. Jing Yunjiao raised his eyebrows and suddenly said, You should know better than me why you were able to marry my first uncle more than 20 years ago, right? But are you sure you can hold on to this position? Do you think that you have everything just because you have a reputation? Naive. If you don't want people to know, then don't do it. The person who should be sitting in this position is not you, then you can't hold on to it. After Jing Yunjiao said the last sentence, Shun Shi's face turned pale. She suddenly raised her hand and was ready to hit Jing Yunjiao. However, Jing Yunjiao directly grabbed her wrist. You can't bear it anymore? I thought Aunt Shun could bear it for a lifetime. Jing Yunjiao laughed coldly and arrogantly. I won't allow you to mess around, Jing Yunjiao. I've had enough of you. Since you can't have me, then don't blame me for being ruthless. Shun Shi gritted her teeth and finally opened her mouth to threaten. The anger in her eyes was monstrous and extremely ferocious. Chapter 1085. Jing Yunjiao flung Shun Shi's hand away. Shun Shi stumbled and fell to the ground. Auntie Shun, you've done more than one extreme thing. Do you think I'll be afraid? Jing Yunjiao's eyes showed no fear. When she was dealing with Xu Yu just now, the evidence that could be used to verify her identity was already in her hands. After tonight, the truth would be revealed. Shun Shi got up from the ground, brushed her clothes, and walked out. Jing Yunjiao must have found out. That was why she was so unscrupulous and said those things. Fine, since she couldn't take the position of Mrs. Xu anymore, she didn't want it anymore. But she couldn't take the position of Shun Tong either. Ever since they were young, Shun Tong had more than her in everything. She was more capable than her in everything. Even though they had similar faces, everyone said that her younger sister was beautiful. She was like a green leaf that shone brightly in contrast to her younger sister. But why? How was she, Shun Shi, inferior? Even the man she met years ago was the same. She had never been to such a high-end party. But she was only Shun Tong's assistant. Even though they wore the same style of clothes and dazzling diamond necklaces, she was still inferior. So she tried her best to make herself look like Shun Tong. She tried her best to act like Shun Tong. She hoped that people would think that she was better than Shun Tong when they saw her. However, when they arrived at the party, everyone only looked at Shun Tong. Some people stared at her face for a while, but when they saw Shun Tong appear beside her, they immediately realized that she was an imposter. They started to stare at her with disdain. She felt like she was being dismembered over and over again when she saw those stares. She felt terrible. So, she accidentally pushed Shun Tong and spilled the wine on her dress. As long as she stood up, she would be exposed. That way, Shun Tong could only sit obediently by the side and not compete with her for the spotlight. Sure enough, it was just as she predicted. Shun Tong hid in an inconspicuous corner. Everyone's attitude towards her changed. Not long after, she got to know a man. A man who could appear there must be of high status. They chatted happily. They drank and laughed together. Later, they went to the room together. However, she did not expect that after she lost her chastity, that man's face suddenly turned cold and he despised her for being a joke. It turned out that the person had long known that she wasn't Shun Tong. She just thought that she was pitiful and sad, so she was playing with her. She ran out of the room in anger, but saw the ordinary accessory that Shen Tong was wearing at the door of the opposite room. She gathered her courage and leaned against the door to listen in, but the door wasn't locked. When he entered the room, he saw Shen Tong and another man lying on the bed. Both of them were unconscious. Shen Tong did not smell of alcohol at all. It looked more like he had been drugged. She knew Xu Yuantarek, the man who had just been promoted. He was very eye-catching and everyone knew who he was. She also knew that Shen Tong was not someone who would mess around. There must have been an accident. She looked so much like Shen Tong, and this man was sleeping so soundly. Maybe she could get away with it. At that moment, she only remembered that she crazily wanted to be acknowledged and crazily needed a man. So she stuffed Shen Tong into the cupboard. She was worried that Shen Tong would wake up. After returning to the bed, she tried to wake Xu Yuantarek up. Later, she found out that because she woke Xu Yuantarek up in advance, those who wanted to harm him did not succeed. So Xu Yuantarek owed her a favor. Chapter 1086. Thinking about the past, Shun Shi's expression stiffened. Back then, although she knew that Xu Yuantarek owed her a favor, she was also afraid that her impersonation would be discovered. So, when Xu Yuantarek asked if she needed to take responsibility that day, she chose to refuse. However, as time passed, she found out that she was pregnant. Not only that, but Shen Tong was also pregnant. Xu Yuantarek didn't notice at all. It was obvious that he didn't know who the person was that night. So, when she appeared again, she agreed to the marriage. She chose to be Xu Yuantarek's wife and a mother. She wanted to have a status and a superior life, but she would never ask for Xu Yuantarek's love. She clearly remembered what she said back then. "Madam, you don't look well. Are you okay?" The servant beside her suddenly asked as she walked step by step. Her footsteps were a little weak. Shun Shi glanced at her in disgust. After feeling the servant's surprise, she restrained herself. "I'm fine. The porridge should be ready, right? Yun Jiao will go to the pharmacy in a while. After he leaves, bring it to Yuan Cheng. Why don't you leave a portion for Miss?" The servant didn't understand. "No need. If she knows that I made it, she might throw it away. When you bring it to Yuan Cheng, don't tell the truth. Just say that it was Yun Jiao's order," Shun Shi said again. The servant quickly nodded. After saying this, Shun Shi gave a few more instructions. Then, she calmly returned to her room. She stuffed the valuables in the safe into her bag and prepared to leave. The truth about Shun Shi's matter would soon be revealed. Xu Wancheng specifically told the security guard to prohibit Shun Shi from entering. However, when Shun Shi walked to the door with tears in her eyes and said that she wanted to find Xu Yuantarek, the security guard still let her go. She didn't even have to use the spray that she had prepared. She had been preparing for this day ever since Shen Tong had arrived. It was just leaving the Xu family. She might not be the one at a disadvantage. She had lived in the Xu family for more than 20 years, so she knew the entire Xu family better than anyone else. Although Xu Yuantarek never allowed the servants to clean his study, it wasn't like they couldn't enter it. Xu Wancheng's bedroom wasn't as confidential as Xu Yuantarek's. As long as the servants put in a little effort, she could get something that would give the two of them a headache. If she couldn't live well, then no one else could either. Shun Shi drove away directly from the Xu family, as if she had forgotten about her son. At this time, Xu Yuantarek hadn't returned home yet. Xu Wancheng and Shen Hong chatted for a while. Shen Tong sat at the side and listened. The atmosphere was harmonious. After a while, the servant served 2 bowls of porridge and placed them in front of Shen Shi and Xu Wancheng. She said, "Second young master, Mrs. Shen, this is porridge prepared by Miss Ji Yu. She said that it's good for replenishing energy. She wants you to try it." 2 bowls. Where's Shen Hong's? Xu Yuantarek frowned. Miss Ji Yu said that she would let young Master Hong have a meal with young Master when he comes back. "Oh right, young Master Hong, before young Master left this morning, he left a chess game for you to study after work," the servant said. When Shen Hong heard this, his interest was piqued. In the morning, he had played a game with his uncle. However, There wasn't much time at that time, so he ended it hastily. It was a pity. When his uncle came back, he would definitely play a good game with him. Shen Hong walked out of the door and headed to the annex building. Shen Tong couldn't help but laugh when she saw how excited he was. She exchanged glances with Xu Wancheng and helplessly picked up the porridge to eat. Chapter 1087. The temperature of the porridge was just right, and it smelled very fragrant. It was very thick, and the two of them quickly finished it. The servant had left the house with the other two workers, saying that they needed help with something, so only the two of them were left in the house, making it seem empty. However, not long after the porridge entered their stomachs, Xu Wancheng felt that something was wrong. He was different from his elder brother. When he was a teenager, his father didn't care about the family affairs and didn't teach him how to make medicine. He only knew a little about medicinal herbs, but when he was young, he had secretly taken a lot of pills, so he knew the difference between feeling unwell and being poisoned. Suddenly, he was shocked and stared at the porridge in front of him in surprise. He quickly glanced at Shen Tong, only to see that her face was red, her eyes were seductive, and her expression was a little dazed. Xu Wancheng instantly understood that the porridge was not prepared by Jing Yunjiao. Xiao Jiao knew Shen Hong's identity, and that Shen Tong was a woman who had slept with his elder brother. She would never do anything or even joke about it. If it wasn't her, then it had to be Shen Shi. She dared to use Jing Yunjiao's name. Xu Wancheng clutched his chest and felt that his vision was starting to blur. Some hallucinations appeared in his mind, and he suddenly felt that something was wrong. He looked at Shen Tong again and saw that she was completely disoriented, and her clothes were a little untidy. Bang! Xu Wancheng immediately smashed the porcelain bowl in front of him and reached out to grab the broken piece of porcelain. Suddenly, blood flowed from his hand, and a wave of pain hit him. While he was still conscious, he quickly walked to the door. However, he fell and knelt, looking extremely embarrassed. When he finally reached the door, he found that the door was locked. There was indeed a mole in this house. Shen Shi was quite capable to make the servant do such a thing. His eyes wandered, and in a trance, he seemed to see a red fluorescent sea in front of him. In that scene, a figure suddenly turned around. However, at this moment, Shen Tong suddenly groaned. When Xu Wancheng heard that, he instantly shuddered. He absolutely could not indulge in his fantasies and act recklessly. Otherwise, the two of them would be completely finished. Regardless of whether Shen Tong was Big Brother's wife or not, she had given birth to Shen Hong, which made her half a sister-in-law. Once something happened between them, it would change more than just a life. If he, the great Xu Wancheng, was tricked by such despicable means, then he would have lived his life in vain. Xu Wancheng gritted his teeth, took the porcelain shard, and slashed his wrist hard. The pain became more and more obvious. Then, he walked step by step to the second floor. When he reached the balcony of the second floor, he jumped off the balcony. "Second young master!" Suddenly, the servant on duty outside screamed. Some people quickly surrounded them, while others immediately went to the pharmacy in the backyard to report to Jing Yunjiao. In this house, Xu Yuantarek and Shen Shi were not around. Now that second young master was in trouble, the only one who could make decisions was Jing Yunjiao. As for old master Shen, he was old, and eldest young master and second young master had already instructed not to disturb him, no matter whether it was big or small. Jing Yunjiao was processing a pile of medicinal herbs for the season. When he heard that second uncle was in trouble, his expression changed greatly. He hurried over and saw that Xu Wancheng was still lying on the floor. His hand was dripping with blood, and his arm was in a strange position. It was obviously broken. Not only that, but his entire face was red, which was a little strange. He had fallen from the second floor, and the door on the first floor was tightly shut. "Get out of the way." Jing Yunjiao hurried forward. Chapter 1088. Jing Yunjiao hurriedly checked his uncle's condition. Feeling his pulse, he heaved a sigh of relief. Without thinking too much, he stuffed a pill into his uncle's mouth. "Miss Biao, do you want to open the door and see what's going on inside?" a servant asked. Shen Hong had also rushed over when he heard the news and was shocked to see this scene. Jing Yunzhao's expression changed when he saw Shen Hong come out of the wing. "Give me the key. You don't have to go in with me." Jing Yunzhao lowered his voice and took the initiative to go forward. He even directly rejected Shen Hong's request and only asked him to arrange for someone to send his uncle back to his room. His uncle was drugged with a drug that could cause hallucinations and stimulate desire. To put it bluntly, it was an aphrodisiac. He probably jumped down from the second floor to avoid suspicion. It seemed that Shen Tong was not spared either. At this time, it was not a good time to let anyone near. After Jing Yunzhao opened the door and went in, he found Shen Tong lying on the sofa with her clothes disheveled. She looked a little. Jing Yunzhao did not have time to be shy. He took out silver needles from his space and hurriedly inserted them into her acupuncture points. After stabilizing her mood, he took a pill and swallowed it. This pill had the effect of clearing one's mind. With the acupuncture treatment, Shen Tong would be able to recover completely. As for his uncle, it was not convenient for him to be outside just now. It would be the same if he treated him later. Moreover, he had other injuries on his body. After doing all this, Jing Yunzhao helped her tidy up her clothes. After a few minutes, Shen Tong rubbed her head and slowly woke up. "Yunzhao, you." Just now, I felt so uncomfortable. My chest felt stuffy. Shen Tong frowned and felt weak all over. This feeling was like more than 20 years ago. Suddenly, Shen Tong recalled some memories. The feeling back then was similar to what she was feeling now, but it was not as serious as before. At that time, she had drunk some wine and felt something was wrong. However, she did not immediately feel uncomfortable. She just could not reject others. "It's okay. You and your uncle just ate something wrong," Jing Yunzhao comforted her. "Huh? The porridge just now? Didn't you cook it? How could it be wrong?" Shen Tong was confused. As for the other things, she did not eat them. When Jing Yunzhao heard this, he said, "Who said I cooked it? Servant. Could it be, not?" Shen Tong took a deep breath. "Is it Shen Shi? She drugged the porridge? Then why am I still alive? Since she could drug them, she should be able to kill them directly, right?" This was too terrifying. They were still in the Shu family, and she actually dared to make a move so openly. If someone dies, the severity of the matter will be different. Jing Yunzhao said simply. Then, he added, "Don't worry. The effects of the drug have been removed. Have a good rest." Shen Tong definitely didn't have much strength right now, so talking to her would only tire her out. Since Jing Yunzhao had already said so, even if Shen Tong wanted to know more, he couldn't ask any more questions. Nodding, he got up and returned to his room. However, as soon as he got up, he almost fell to the ground. When he saw the broken bowl on the ground, as well as the bright red bloodstains, he seemed to have an impression of them. His face paled instantly. As for the stairs, 1 step, 2 steps, the bloody stains led directly to the second floor. The only person in the room with her was Xu Wancheng, which meant that the blood was his. As for the drug, it was not that simple. She was not stupid. She suddenly felt a lingering fear. Fortunately, Xu Wancheng was a gentleman. Fortunately, his mind was strong enough. If he was like her, she was afraid. Chapter 1089. When Jing Yunzhao saw Shen Tong's trembling figure, he couldn't bear to remind her of the most serious part of this incident. He walked out of the door with a sullen face and stared at the servants outside. "Where is Shen Shi? She should be in the room," one of them said. "No, I saw her go out," another person muttered. Jing Yunzhao's gaze was cold as she scanned the people in front of her. Each and every one of them looked nervous and guilty, but their eyes were flickering. Each and every one of them spoke ambiguously. "You look at me, I look at you, lazy and undisciplined." The Shu family had a small population. These people were servants, not servants who had signed contracts in ancient times. Therefore, the Shu family was very polite to them. "Who was the one who brought the porridge to second young master?" Jing Yunzhao asked again. As soon as he said this, Several people looked at a girl in her early 20s. She was young and wore the uniform of the Shu family. She looked clever and clever. It was me. The girl stood out and admitted with her head lowered. She didn't know why second young master fell from upstairs. All she did was bring the porridge, ask the other servants to go out, and lock the door from the outside. In fact, it wasn't a big deal. They couldn't blame her for second young master's fall, right? Then she was too innocent. If there was really any danger, why didn't they press the alarm? She didn't know what they would see once the alarm went off and everyone rushed into the room. You told my second uncle that I made the porridge? Jing Yunjiao asked even though he knew the answer. His eyes flashed with murderous intent. 2 or 3 hours ago, she told these people not to be self-righteous and act stupid. She didn't expect that in such a short time, someone would step on her bottom line. Fortunately, nothing happened this time. If something happened, the Shu family would be in chaos. Yes. Madam said that she was afraid that you wouldn't eat it if you knew. This porridge is good for your health. The girl said carefully. Madam said. What else did she say? Someone who can make you send the people in the house away and even let you close the door? Jing Yunjiao's voice became colder. It's nothing. It's just. He said that there's a misunderstanding between second young master and Mrs. Shun, so he asked me to give them a chance to talk alone and resolve the misunderstanding. Miss Biao, second young master's fall shouldn't be my problem, right? After the girl explained, she still had a serious look on her face. It wasn't her fault. Huh. She really dared to say that. The servants of the Shu family had high standards. They were generally over 25 years old, but the woman in front of her was only in her early 20s. Therefore, she had asked the other servants a long time ago and learned that this woman's parents used to work for the Shu family. However, they had resigned due to poor health and passed away not long after. When her parents worked for the Shu family, she had also lived in the staff building next to the Shu family for a period of time. She was quite familiar with the work of the Shu family, so they made an exception and let her get a salary. I've warned you before not to be stupid, right? But you still did it knowingly. You used my name to deliver poisoned porridge to second young master. He fell from the building in order to survive. Do you think this has nothing to do with you? Jing Yunjiao said coldly. When the woman heard this, she immediately panicked. That's impossible. How could Madam deliver poisoned porridge? Then do you think my uncle's brain was damaged? That's why he fell from the building so stupidly. Jing Yunjiao suddenly raised his voice. The woman immediately shrank back. If I'm not wrong, that porridge was cooked by you. Shunshi didn't touch it at all, right? Jing Yunjiao suddenly sneered and asked again. The woman was still a little confused and didn't understand, but she still nodded. That's enough. Cousin, please send her to the police station when you go to work tomorrow. Chapter 1090. Jing Yunjiao wasn't trying to scare the girl in front of him. Shunshi had always been meticulous. Even if she was harming someone in broad daylight, she didn't leave any evidence behind. Even if the girl said that it was Shunshi's arrangement, who would believe her? Shunshi had only said those words to her. There was no evidence. She had no way to accuse Shunshi. Not only that, she was the one who sent the porridge and closed the door. If they really wanted to find out who was responsible, who else could it be other than her? When the girl heard this, she panicked. You can't accuse me. I didn't do it. Madam asked me to send the porridge. It's useless to talk to me. You can talk to the police. If you can prove that it was Shunshi's arrangement, then consider yourself lucky. Jing Yunjiao said coldly and turned to look at his second uncle. Although the second floor was not high, it was still very dangerous to fall down like that. Fortunately, second uncle also knew that he had protected his head. Therefore, other than his arm, there were not many problems. The medicine on his body had been removed, and the wound on his hand had been bandaged. However, looking at second uncle like this, the anger in her heart grew layer by layer. I heard that second uncle Shu arranged for people to watch aunt and not let her go out. Why did aunt? Shunhong frowned and couldn't help but say. He could tell that this aunt of his was not easy to get along with. In the past, his mother had been very respectful to her, but now, that had changed. What had happened just now was also her doing. From the moment he moved in, he could feel that his aunt was not what she appeared to be on the surface. Now, she had completely revealed her fox tail. When Jing Yunjiao heard Shen Hong's words, his face became more and more frightening. The servants and security guards were paid by the Shu family, but they didn't do anything for the Shu family. There were people who didn't follow the orders of the second young master, Shu Wancheng. It was obvious that they were influenced by Shun Shi to this extent. Jing Yunjiao stayed by Shu Wancheng's side until midnight. Just as she was about to go to sleep, she vaguely heard the sound of cars approaching. There was more than one. Logically speaking, even if eldest uncle was working overtime, he should have informed her in advance. However, the fact that he hadn't returned yet made her worried. At this time, there was such a big commotion outside. She knew that she must have done something again. Miss Ji Yu, there are many investigators outside. They said that someone reported eldest young master, corruption and child abuse. The servant quickly explained. After Jing Yunjiao heard his explanation, she nodded her head and walked towards the warehouse without another word. When she opened the door, Shu Yu, who was inside, saw her and immediately went crazy. He pointed at her neck and started scolding her. Although Shu Yu's neck was bleeding, it was just a scratch. The floor was very clean and didn't need to be cleaned. Shu Yu had just been sent to the space when people approached the storeroom. Shun Shi was leading them. Her eyes were red, and she looked nervous and scared. She looked like a victim. Behind them were a few men in suits and leather shoes, bringing along a group of people. When Shun Shi saw that there was no one in the warehouse, she immediately stared at Jing Yunjiao and asked, "Where's my son?" "Aunt Shun, what do you mean? Cousin has hands and feet. How would I know where he went?" Jing Yunjiao walked to the door with a natural expression. "Jing Yunjiao. He was locked up here before. Where is he now?" Shun Shi said angrily. Chapter 1091. Jing Yunjiao couldn't help but smile. She looked at Shun Shi provocatively. "The storeroom is only so big. It's clear at a glance. Aunt Shun, even if you don't believe me, you should believe your own eyes, right? Cousin is a living person. Do you think I can hide him? Anyway, I said I don't know. Even if you ask until the sky shatters, I still don't know," Jing Yunjiao said coldly. Shun Shi dared to plot against the Shu family behind their backs. She shouldn't blame her for being impolite. "You want to see your son? Never in your life." As soon as Jing Yunjiao said this, Shun Shi's face instantly turned pale. She turned towards the investigators and said, "I'll have to trouble you guys to search carefully. There are a few storerooms, a pharmacy, and a basement. Also, she might have already caused my son's death. No matter what, I want to see her if she's alive, and her corpse if she's dead." The investigators were also somewhat confused. Was the Shu family really a place of tigers and wolves? No matter how bad Shu Yuantarek was, he was still Shu Yuantarek's son. How could this little girl really kill him? "Don't worry. There are already people searching everywhere," the investigator said softly. Jing Yunjiao smiled and said, "I heard that someone reported my eldest uncle for corruption, right? Our Shu family has a lot of treasures left by our ancestors. We have never lacked money. If it was said that eldest uncle committed other crimes, I might be suspicious. But to say that he was greedy for money, that's impossible," Jing Yunjiao said casually, but these words were from the bottom of his heart. Eldest uncle was a very principled person. Moreover, he had been in the government for so many years. He clearly knew what he couldn't do. It was absolutely impossible for him to be greedy for money. "Also, I'll have to trouble you guys to not make any small movements while you're searching. If there's even a single item missing from this house, I won't let you guys off," Jing Yunjiao said as she calmly walked out of the crowd. The people behind him didn't take it seriously and hurriedly continued to search. Shun Shi was Shu Yuantarek's wife. If she reported it personally, it would be a very deep stab. At this moment, Jing Yunjiao finally understood why his first uncle had not returned home yet. He had probably been taken away for questioning. The Shu family's old mansion was so big that there was indeed a lot of property in it. After checking, the group of investigators was almost scared out of their wits. With such a big commotion, even if the old man didn't want to know, he couldn't. He was very angry, and the investigator was still staring at some of the rare treasures in the pharmacy. Were these things bribed to Mayor Shu? One of them stared at the old man and asked. When the old man heard this, he suddenly swung his walking stick that he didn't usually use and hit the man's head with it. A bunch of blind people. You can't see the account book next to you, right? Our Shu family's wealth has never been weak. Do we need to be greedy? A bunch of idiots. As long as they found a professional to check the account book, they would know that it had been there for many years. The man covered his head and was shocked. His forehead was instantly bruised, but the old man's aura was so intimidating that he didn't dare to act rashly. Jing Yunjiao, who was sitting next to him, asked faintly, I want to know what you have to accuse my first uncle of accepting bribes. Mayor Shu spent a lot of money to buy a bracelet, right? The man reminded him. The mayor of Jingju was about the same level as the leaders of other provinces. In front of the people, even if an ordinary mayor wore a watch worth 200,000 yuan, it would be discussed and criticized. However, Shu Yuantarek bought a jade worth more than 10 million yuan, and the receipt for the jade bracelet was now included in the investigation, which proved that it was true. So it's because of the jade bracelet. Jing Yunjiao suddenly smiled. Chapter 1092. Since you want to investigate, then I might as well tell you what I know. Our Shu family is rich, and you should know this yourself. My eldest uncle is the eldest son of the Shu family, so it's normal for him to have money. If he really needs money, he can borrow it from my grandfather or my second uncle. Even I have the ability to provide him with a considerable amount of money. Since any one of us can help him, is there a need for him to take such a risk? By now, Jing Yunjiao had already completely relaxed. This matter wasn't serious, and it was just a routine investigation. Shun Shi's real purpose was to use the investigation to get Shu Yu out of here. His eldest uncle's influence over the years wasn't just for show. Someone behind him wanted to take the opportunity to tarnish his reputation, but it was impossible for them to succeed. What could a receipt for a jade bracelet prove? Unless they could find concrete evidence that his eldest uncle received money from others. How are you going to help Mayor Shu? The person in charge of the investigation casually asked, thinking that this little girl was joking. You government officials are really forgetful. Just a while ago, I donated 80 million yuan to charity in the name of Yunling Medical for my eldest uncle's sake, and now you're here to investigate my eldest uncle's background. You really know how to do things. Jing Yunjiao coldly sneered. When the person heard Yunling Medical, his expression changed. In the eyes of the government, Yunling Medical had a green card. Unless there was a problem with their principles, they definitely couldn't be offended. Could it be that the person behind Yunling Medical was actually Mayor Shu's niece? This girl didn't look like an ordinary person. Logically speaking, after seeing such a big commotion, she should be flustered. However, the fact was that she was very calm from the beginning to the end. Her aura was even able to suppress so many people. Although there was a difference in age, the Shu family had always produced talented people. Shu Yuantarek had made a name for himself when he was in his teens. When he became an official in his 20s, he already had many achievements. He was the pride of the political world in the eyes of others. As for Shu Wancheng, he was like a fish in water in the business world. It wasn't surprising that the Shu family had another genius. Speaking of which, in fact, they didn't believe that Shu Yuantarek would accept bribes. After all, he had such a rich brother, so there was no need for him to do so. This time, it was just a routine investigation. As long as they didn't find any substantial evidence, it was impossible to convict Shu Yuantarek just because of a jade bracelet. After all, Shu Yuantarek's family's wealth was different from others. After these people to ask a few more questions, they finally brought Shu Yu as an example. However, Jing Yunjiao kept to her original statement and only said that she didn't know where Shu Yu was. Among the servants, there were some who came forward to prove that Jing Yunjiao was the one who locked her up, but the truth was, these people had turned the entire Shu family upside down, yet they still couldn't find where she was hiding. Thus, no one could do anything to her. This search was all bark and no bite. Soon, it completely dispersed. Shunxi's face was full of despair. She originally planned to use this opportunity to get Shu Yuantarek out. Not only that, even if she couldn't convict him of accepting bribes, she could definitely let people know that he was a cruel man. Then, no matter what she said in front of the media or her friends, it would be very reasonable. But now, she couldn't find him. It was obviously a surprise attack. Jing Yunjiao didn't have time to hide him. Jing Yunjiao, this is not over. Yu is missing. I will send people to search. Just you wait. If anything happens to Yu, I will make you pay with your life. Shunxi's whole body was trembling. She only felt that the future was bleak. She was one step away. She was just one step away. Chapter 1093. Jing Yunjiao smiled at Shunxi. You're welcome to search at any time, but if you come too often, I'm afraid I won't be too happy. At that time, Jing Yunjiao didn't continue, but Shunxi could understand what she meant. Shu Yu was in her hands, and it was equivalent to holding Shunxi's most important weakness. Jing Yunjiao, don't be too arrogant. Shunxi threatened coldly, but she was very guilty in her heart. All these years, the only person who could accompany her was her son. She really didn't teach her son well, but no matter what, she gave birth to him after carrying him for 10 months. How could she bear to let him suffer? She originally thought that as long as she and Shu Yuantarek lived in fear, they could exhaust the old man to death one day, and even let Shu Yuantarek leave earlier. At that time, the Shu family's property would be hers and her son's. During the search, she also saw that there were so many good things that should have been hers and her son's, but now they were benefiting that bitch Jing Yunjiao. Jing Yunjiao originally wanted to take advantage of Shunxi, but at this time, he felt that it was too easy for her to die silently. Moreover, he still didn't know who was hiding behind her, so he had to wait. After Shunxi and the group of people left, the Shu family returned to peace. After a night of chaos, the sky was bright. Jing Yunjiao didn't sleep the whole night, but he didn't look haggard. However, the others were different, and their faces were gloomy. First uncle came back at daybreak. Other than the fact that he didn't change out of his clothes, which were slightly wrinkled, he didn't look any different from before. At this time, Jing Yunjiao had second uncle send the results of the appraisal yesterday. After looking through it once, Jing Yunjiao felt deep sympathy for first uncle. Were you scared last night? Shu Yuantarek asked Jing Yunjiao as soon as he came back. Jing Yunjiao shook his head. Uncle, get ready. I have something to tell you. When Shu Yuantarek heard this, he raised his eyebrows. He was a little puzzled, but he nodded very seriously. Then, he went to take a shower and changed into a clean set of clothes before going to the living room. However, when he went to the living room, he saw that the old man and Shu Xingyuan were also there. In addition, Shu Wancheng's younger brother was actually injured and looked at him strangely. What happened to your hand? Shu Yuantarek was still confused. When he came back this morning, he found that something was wrong with the house. More than half of the servants were gone, and it seemed particularly quiet. Even the security guard at the door was gone. Isn't it sister-in-law's doing? She asked someone to send some porridge over in Xiao Zhao's name. There was something dirty in the porridge, so Shentong and I drank it. Luckily, I had enough willpower to jump down from the second floor in time. Otherwise, things would have gotten out of hand. Shu Wancheng was furious when he thought about it. When Shu Yuantarek heard this, he was also very shocked. Jump off the building? The door was closed. Yes, the servants and security guards in this house are not reliable. Most of them were bewitched by Shunxi. I originally asked someone to keep an eye on Shunxi, but in the end, she could openly walk away from the Shu family. So, I made the decision to dismiss all of them early in the morning. The rest are the old people, Shu Wancheng said. It was not that everyone in this family could not be trusted. At least, many of them were loyal to the old man. Some of them had worked in the Shu family all their lives and had never betrayed the family. Naturally, they should be kept. Shu Wancheng could judge whether they were loyal enough. When Shu Yuantarek heard this, he nodded. Okay. By the way, Yun Jiao, what do you want to talk to me about? Shu Yuantarek asked again. Chapter 1094. Shu Yuantarek only felt that everyone in the family was looking at him strangely, especially his younger brother. His attitude seemed to be sympathetic, but there was also a hint of schadenfreude, as if he had done something shameful. Although he had been called to investigate last night, it was not a big deal. After all, everyone knew about his family background. The accusation of bribery could not be imposed on him in this lifetime. It was just that he had been reported a little abruptly. Of course, he also knew that if it had been someone else who had reported it, it would not have caused such a big commotion. It was only because it was Shun Shi that it was like this. Big brother, Yun Jiao has already prepared the medicine to prevent heart problems. I think you can hold on. Shu Wancheng suddenly said something out of the blue. Nonsense, what on earth is going on? Shu Yuantarek was a little confused. At this time, Jing Yunjiao's expression was also very complicated. He thought for a while and turned to look at his second uncle. Are you really not going to tell Aunt Tong and the others? You can tell them, but if they know the truth, they will definitely move out of the Shu family immediately. At that time, your eldest uncle will have even less of a chance. Shu Wancheng's somewhat pale face showed a trace of a smile. Jing Yunjiao thought that it was indeed reasonable. With Aunt Tong's personality, once she knew that her brother-in-law was that person, she was afraid that she would be greatly affected. At that time, she might directly go abroad and never come back. In her opinion, Aunt Tong and her eldest uncle were a good match. Moreover, her eldest uncle indeed owed Aunt Tong and Shenhong a lot. It was better to cultivate their relationship as much as possible before telling the truth. At this time, Shu Yuantarek could not understand the meaning of the two's words at all. He only felt that his nephew and uncle were speaking in riddles. Don't the two of you consider my feelings? How dare you pretend to be mysterious in front of me? Shu Yuantarek shook his head speechlessly. Jing Yunjiao smiled apologetically and took a deep breath. After calming down for a few seconds, he said, Eldest uncle, I asked my second uncle to help me compare your genes with Shu Yu's. The results are out. The two of you are not father and son at all. After that, Jing Yunjiao handed over the documents that second uncle's confidant had sent to him in the morning. When Shu Yuantarek heard this, he was dumbfounded. He thought that Jing Yunjiao was joking with him, but judging from his attitude, it didn't seem like it at all. When he opened it up to take a look, he was even more dumbfounded. Are you sure? But that's impossible. After that incident, I've been sending people to secretly follow Shen Shi. During this period, she has never had any relationship with anyone else. I'm absolutely sure of this. Otherwise, I wouldn't have married her. At that time, if he had not confirmed that Shen Shi was not suspicious, he would not have married her directly. He would have waited until the child was born to check whether he was related to her. But, could it be that she was swapped after giving birth? But that was impossible. Back then, he had personally stood guard outside. With his status, it was even more impossible for him to make any mistakes. Uncle, the woman who was implicated by you back then was not her. Jing Yunjiao sighed and said sympathetically. If it wasn't her, then who was it? The person I saw when I opened my eyes was Shen Shi. There's no mistake. Moreover, it was because she woke me up in advance that I wasn't intercepted. Shu Yuantarek frowned. He still couldn't figure it out. At that time, he had not planned to marry Shen Shi. However, after all, they had slept together. At that time, chastity was very precious to a woman. Although Shen Shi didn't ask him to take responsibility at that time, when he thought of this woman helping him, he felt a little guilty. Later, when he found out that she was pregnant, he thought of asking her if she was willing to be Mrs. Shu. After she returned to China, she encountered a series of dangerous situations. She mainly wanted to send her abroad. Who knew that not only was Aunt Tong unaffected, but she even came to my birthday party. She was worried that you would remember some details, or that Aunt Tong would find out the truth one day, so she simply sent someone to kill her and caused her to get into a car accident, Jing Yunjiao said very straightforwardly. Because she knew about the relationship between you and Shen Tong, she drugged second uncle and Aunt Tong to have an ambiguous relationship. In that case, you two brothers. In short, once Shen Tong's identity was exposed, you two would definitely fight. At that time, Shen Tong would definitely not be able to enter the Shu family. And once the news spread, the three of your reputations would be ruined. At this time, Jing Yunjiao was also a little scared. This time, it was all thanks to second uncle's bravery. Chapter 1096. Although Aunt Tong was in her 40s, she took good care of herself and looked like she was in her early 30s. Her skin was tight, her appearance was good, and she was very elegant. If a drugged man could turn a blind eye to such a woman, he could be called a gentleman. Jing Yunjiao was not stingy with his praise and admiration for his second uncle. Xu Wancheng was originally angry because of this matter, but when he saw Jing Yunjiao's eyes, he instantly became arrogant. How could he take advantage of someone when they were in danger? Xu Yuantarek stared at his younger brother, Xu Wancheng. At this time, he still had the nerve to show off. Jiao, according to you, if Shen Tong is that woman, then Shen Hong is my son? Xu Yuantarek could not believe it. That's right. Then, Jing Yunjiao took out another report. Xu Yuantarek's hands were trembling. It had to be said that he was extremely satisfied with everything in his life. The only regret was that he did not have an heir. In the past, he had thought that since he had married Shen Shi, he would not abandon her. Therefore, he clearly knew that he would not have any other children in this lifetime. However, Xu Yu had disappointed him to the point that he could not accept it. If he passed away and left everything to Xu Yu, he would feel unwilling. But after all, he only had this one child. It was too difficult to make the choice to cut off his path of survival. But he never thought that Xu Yu was an imposter, and that his real son was Shen Hong. After spending these 2 days with Shen Hong, he was very satisfied with this child. Shen Hong was young, but he had almost the same insight as he did when he was young. To be shameless, with his expectations for his future heir when he was young, he should have at least reached Shen Hong's level. However, after so many years of Xu Yu's troubles, his bottom line was getting lower and lower, and he was now at the level of knowing right from wrong. But now that he thought about it, it was no wonder that he felt that Shen Hong was somewhat familiar and pleasing to the eye at first sight. He always felt that he was more congenial with him, and couldn't help but be more concerned about his affairs. At this moment, when he found out about his identity, he felt like he had been hit by a surprise that fell from the sky. Although he was happy, Xu Yuantarek was still a little conflicted. In any case, he had raised Xu Yu for 21 years, but now, he had changed people just like that. Although it was developing in a good direction, he still felt a little sad. Humans were not plants and could not be emotionless. Hong is a good person. Since he is my son, then I have no regrets in this life. The heavens have treated me well. Xu Yuantarek sighed with emotion, and then sighed again. It's just that, if it wasn't for the Xu family's protection, with Xu Yu's personality, he definitely wouldn't have lived long. Over the years, Xu Yu had offended too many people. The group of scoundrels who followed him around only got close to him because of the Xu family. Once his identity was exposed, those people would definitely turn on him. First uncle, everyone has their own fate. And don't forget, Xu Yu's biological father isn't an ordinary person. Jing Yunjiao reminded. When Xu Yuantarek heard this, he suddenly remembered and instantly felt that he had been too soft-hearted just now. She had brought Xu Yu along to pretend to be part of the Xu family. She was already up to no good. The Xu family had never mistreated this mother and son pair. Now, they were just trying to set things right. It was only natural. But, who was Xu Yu's biological father? Shu Yuantarek thought carefully and matched this person with the figure that was helping Shun Shi behind the scenes. The puzzle gradually became clearer. Chapter 1097. It seemed that Shun Shi's man was most likely his enemy. But no matter who it was, sooner or later, he would find out who it was. Listening to your conversation, it seems that Shen Tong and Hong Er still don't know about this matter. Shu Yuantarek breathed a sigh of relief. Thinking of Shen Hong, his face showed a bit of a relaxed expression. The old man next to him also thought of the young man he met by chance these 2 days. His pair of turbid eyes narrowed. He took out a small wine jug and took 2 sips. Yes, it's up to you whether you want to say it or not. Of course, I welcome Aunt Tong to be my aunt. Uncle, you have to work hard. Jing Yunjiao teased. However, the moment he mentioned the word auntie, a cold light flashed across Jing Yunjiao's eyes. She continued, Uncle, Shun Shi is the best at stirring up people's emotions. I think it's better if you make a move first. Otherwise, if she starts spouting nonsense to the outside world, we'll lose the initiative, just like last night. Shu Yuantarek nodded. But I heard that Shu Yu is missing. What's going on? Did he escape by himself? Shu Yuantarek remembered and asked. For Shun Shi, Shu Yu was a very good means to control. It was best to have him in her hands. Once he became an enemy, there was no possibility of mercy. He was hidden by me. Uncle, you don't have to worry. The place where I hid him is absolutely secretive enough that no one will find him. Jing Yunjiao said. Shu Yuantarek was very confident in Jing Yunjiao. After telling these things, Jing Yunjiao was sent to school by her uncle. But after all, she was delayed for a long time, so she was late for school. But the teachers had always been satisfied with her and were more lenient with the students, so no one asked much. Just as Jing Yunjiao was going to school, Shu Yuantarek was ready to act. Although marriage would affect one's political career, it was not absolute. At the very least, it would not affect Shu Yuantarek too much. Therefore, on the first day, Shu Yuantarek directly began to track Shun Shi's whereabouts. He found that Shun Shi was now living in a house outside, and the owner of that house was Shun Shi. On this day, he investigated and found that Shun Shi had indeed invited some rich ladies to her house as guests, so there must be something going on. Shu Yuantarek was not in a hurry. He directly posted the evidence of Shu Yu's crimes with great fanfare. In an instant, Shu Yu turned from a dignified young master Shu to a wanted criminal. Shu Yuantarek hurriedly reflected on himself in front of the public, saying that he had spent a lot of effort on Shu Yuantarek all these years, but he had never seen any results. Many people knew that he had tortured Shu Yu time and time again, and everyone knew that Shu Yu was a hedonistic son of a rich family. Then, Shu Yuantarek once again expressed that he and his wife, Shun Shi, had a big disagreement on the issue of their son's education. Now, his wife insisted on protecting her son without asking whether he was right or wrong. She even falsely reported him as her husband. She was heartless and had since filed a divorce. This was only the first step. Shu Yuantarek's influence was definitely not something that Mrs. Shu could compare to. Especially when he put aside the father-son relationship and publicized his son's crimes, many people were shocked and impressed. In terms of ruthlessness, Shu Yuantarek was a person who would not care about any relationship once he fell out with someone. Therefore, his statement did not leave any room for negotiation. He criticized Shu Yu and his son as having no social value. He even said that his wife was just a pretty face and did not know what was right and wrong. If it was an ordinary man who was so decisive, it would definitely cause some people to be dissatisfied and feel sorry for his wife and son. However, Shu Yuantarek was not just a person who belonged to the family. His real work was for the people. Now that he was upright, it attracted one-sided praise. Chapter 1098. Shun Shi had already found a lady from a wealthy family that she had a good relationship with to have a long talk to express her grievances. When she saw the sympathy and anger on their faces, she heaved a sigh of relief and said that they would definitely ask their husbands for help. She was also prepared to use public opinion to pressure Shu Yuantarek. However, when those ladies left, she realized that a storm was brewing outside. Shu Yuantarek, this man, was actually one step ahead of her. She suddenly showed a sense of despair. She thought that she could have at least a few more days. As long as Shu Yuantarek did not confirm that she was the imposter, he would abide by the fact that he had promised her that year and not be too ruthless. However, now that he had made his move, it proved that he now knew the truth. Moreover, he had specially released the evidence of Shu Yu's crimes. It was obvious that he was using Shu Yu to threaten her. If she resisted, Shu Yu would definitely be arrested. It would be fine if he only went to jail, but the problem was that Shu Yuantarek already knew Shu Yu's identity and might not let him live. In an instant, she was panicking. She even felt that she was a little ridiculous. She even invited those ladies from wealthy families. If Shu Yuantarek did not say anything, it would indeed be useful. However, now that public opinion was one step ahead of that man, how could those ladies be stupid enough to help her? In a few days, Shu Yuantarek got divorced with a bang. Shun Shi's reputation was already bad, and Shu Yuantarek's reputation had been restored. However, less than 2 days after the divorce, there was suddenly a rumor among the upper class. Some people said that the reason why Shu Yuantarek married Shun Shi was that he had been framed and caused Shun Shi to lose her virginity. Originally, they thought that Shun Shi was lucky enough to become Mrs. Shun, but they did not expect that 20 years later, there would be a sudden reversal, and that was that Shun Shi had premeditated and substituted one person for another. A person like Shu Yuantarek was definitely not Shu Yuantarek's biological son. Otherwise, he wouldn't be such a bastard. The public was too lazy to care about Shu Yuantarek's private affairs. After all, he was high up in the social circle and couldn't be bothered with it. However, it was different for people in the same social circle. After knowing about this matter, everyone began to despise Shun Shi in an instant. Recalling Shun Shi's behavior over the years, those who had been in contact with her suddenly felt a chill run down their spines. However, no one knew who the woman who was supposed to be Mrs. Shu was. While Shu Yuantarek was controlling the public opinion, he also had people keep a close eye on Shun Shi. He wanted to see if she would contact the mysterious man behind the scenes. Unfortunately, after more than half a month, there was still no discovery. As for the Shu family, there had been a lot of changes recently. Shen Hong only felt that the Shu family was unusually good to him. Even the old man, who didn't show up often, would occasionally ask him to accompany him for a few drinks. Uncle Shu, who was always by the old man's side, was also very respectful to him. "Mommy, do you feel that something is wrong recently?" Seeing that this family was getting better and better towards them, he felt a little uneasy and asked. Shen Tong also nodded. Logically speaking, Shun Shi and your uncle are divorced, so she should have some prejudice against us. However, it seems that it's the opposite. Oh right, 2 days ago, the new maid called me Mrs. Shu. Hong it seems that we can't continue to stay in the Shu family. But Aunt Shun Hong had recently found out who caused his mother's car accident, so he was a little worried. I'll be more careful and try not to go out. If it's really impossible, I'll hire a few bodyguards. I think it'll be difficult for Shun Shi to do anything even if she wants to, Shun Tong said seriously. Now that Shun Shi was no longer around, she would be criticized if she continued to stay in this house. She didn't want people to think that she had ulterior motives. Chapter 1099. Shun Hong agreed with Shun Tong's idea, but he couldn't bear to leave the Shu family. The Shu family treated him and his mother very well. Jing Yunjiao treated him like a cousin, and Grandfather Shu and Second Uncle Shu were very polite to him. They got along very well, as if they were family. Shu Yuantarek was even more so. The two of them usually played chess and practiced martial arts, and they got along very well. Once they moved out, there was probably no one else in the country who could chat as happily as him. Shun Hong was a little disappointed, but he still followed his mother's wishes and prepared to talk to Mayor Shu about this matter. After dinner, Shun Hong thought about what to say. After some consideration, he opened his mouth and said, Elder Shu, eldest Uncle Shu, second Uncle Shu, mother, and I have been in the Shu family for some time. I think we will move out in 2 days, so I wanted to discuss this with you. As soon as he finished speaking, Grandfather Shu's old face twitched, and he glared at Shu Yuantarek fiercely. At his age, he finally saw a decent grandson, but in the end, his good-for-nothing son didn't even dare to acknowledge his grandson. Shu Yuantarek's whole body stiffened, and his expression became strange. The atmosphere instantly dropped to the freezing point. Jing Yunjiao took a big bite of the big apple from his pocket dimension and sank into the sofa without making a sound. Shu Wancheng looked at Shu Yuantarek provocatively. His face was asking for a beating. Did the Shu family not take good care of you? Shu Yuantarek thought for a moment and asked. Of course not. The Shu family treats me and my mother like family, and I am very touched. However, it has been a long time, and now that aunt and uncle are divorced, I am afraid it is not appropriate for us to continue living here, Shenhong continued. Shu Yuantarek thought for a moment. What he said made sense. However, there's nothing inappropriate about it. You are friends invited by Zhao. What does it have to do with Shunxi? Just continue to live here. Recently, Shunxi is still living well outside. If you go out, won't you be like sheep in a tiger's den? Shu Yuantarek suddenly felt that it was a good thing not to deal with Shunxi for the time being. Uncle Shu, I'm someone who can protect myself after all. With me around, I definitely won't let mommy fall into danger again. You can't be so absolute. You still have to go to work. It's impossible for you to follow your mother 24 hours a day. She's already worked very hard to take care of you and raise you all these years. If you insist on leaving, and she encounters danger outside, how will you feel at ease? Shu Yuantarek's words were also sincere. Although he loathed Shunxi, he felt a deep sense of guilt towards Shentong. This woman had given birth to a son for him and taught him to be so successful. Back then, it was because of him that Shentong lost her bright future as a star. Over the years, he had risen to the top, but this woman had suffered all kinds of grievances. Shu Yuantarek's words made Shenhong feel strange. Since Shentong wasn't around, Shenhong thought for a moment and boldly asked, Uncle Shu, do you have any special feelings towards mommy? Shu Yuantarek's mouth twitched. Grandpa Shen gave him a threatening look. At this time, of course, he had to admit it. Based on their recent friendship, how could Shenhong not help out? Wouldn't they not have to move out? Of course, Shu Wancheng nodded in agreement. He didn't mind watching the drama unfold. Jing Yunjiao didn't expect his cousin to be so direct. In his heart, he was a little expectant of his uncle's answer. To be honest, I really admire your mother. She's a very outstanding woman worthy of my admiration. Shu Yuantarek finally opened his mouth and said, and I do have my own selfish reasons for wanting to keep you guys. Chapter 1100. Before Shu Yuantarek could finish his sentence, Jing Yunjiao and Shu Wancheng's hearts skipped a beat. They thought that first uncle was going to tell the truth. Unexpectedly, he changed the topic and continued, I've been very disappointed in you all these years. After seeing you, I can't help but feel relieved. I want you to stay because I want you to be half my son, so that I can enjoy the joy of a father-son relationship. When Shenhong heard this, he nodded as if he understood something. That Shu Yu was indeed a disappointment. It was inevitable that Mayor Shu would be disappointed. Moreover, there were rumors that Shu Yu wasn't his son. It would be strange if he didn't feel upset. At this moment, Shu Yuantarek had played the family card. Shenhong really didn't know how to refuse, but he didn't want his mother to feel uncomfortable. He said in a conflicted manner, after I moved out of the Shu family, I'll come here often. Also, I haven't been back to the beauty salon that my mother runs for a long time. She's been worried recently. This meant that he was determined to leave. Shu Yuantarek's head was about to explode. He wanted to tell Shenhong that he was a member of the Shu family and didn't need to go anywhere else. However, he couldn't bring himself to say it. He didn't even have the right to say it. After all, He mistook the mother and son for someone else and left them outside for so many years. What right did he have to take over their lives and control their lives? If that's the case, then fine. But write down your address for me. I'll go and take a look when I'm free, Shu Yuantarek said. When he said this, the old man snorted coldly. He got up and went upstairs with Shu Xingyuan. He couldn't be bothered with this idiot. His biological son was right in front of him. Shouldn't he just stay? As for that one called Shen Tong, compared to Shen Shi, he was a million times better. Now that he was unmarried and she was already so old, why couldn't he just make do with it? So what if they lived apart? It was not good for the child's education. Of course, Shen Hong was already grown up, but the problem was that the two of them were still compatible. If they got together early, they might be able to have another child in the future. If Shu Yuantarek knew what the old man was thinking, he would be so shocked that he would spit out a mouthful of blood. At this time, as soon as Shu Yuantarek opened his mouth to agree, Shen Hong breathed a sigh of relief and felt very guilty in his heart. He thought that in the future, he would definitely fulfill the agreement and visit more often. Shen Hong and his mother came quickly and left quickly. They didn't bring anything when they came, but when they left, they stuffed bags of various sizes into the car, leaving behind a trail of dust. Jing Yunjiao felt as if his uncle's heart had flown away. Uncle, Aunt Tong is such a good woman. Why don't you take the initiative to chase after her? Jing Yunjiao couldn't help but ask. What does a little girl like you know? Shu Yuantarek was speechless. The recent events had really made him lose his dignity as an uncle. At this time, he coughed dryly and said, no matter what I do now, Shen Tong will probably think that I'm doing it for the sake of the child. How can I, Shu Yuantarek, be that kind of person? He wasn't a stone. How could he not feel the slightest bit of emotion when facing a woman who raised his son for him? Besides, Shen Tong and Shen Shi were completely different. Shen Shi had a kind of hypocrisy in her bones. Every time he tried to accept her, that kind of hypocritical smile would make him calm down again. Shen Tong was different. Although they were sisters, Shen Tong was more genuine. He finally understood why Shen Shi was so jealous of Shen Tong. It was because this younger sister of hers had a trace of uniqueness that she had never seen before. Zhao, I have a natural body fragrance, so I won't get sick of it. Also, you're an injured person these days. The corner of Jing Yunjiao's mouth twitched. How could he say something like that? She had really underestimated him in the past. Li Xiaoyun, you're hurting my precious Xiao Zhao. Let go. Xu Wencheng reached out to help. However, when Li Xiaoyun saw that someone was trying to snatch her away from him, he decided to go all the way. He directly pressed Jing Yunjiao into his embrace and kissed her forehead fiercely. Uncle Xu, this is called a loving hug. It doesn't hurt. Brat. Who let you kiss her? Xiao Zhao hasn't married you yet. Do you think I'm dead? Xu Wencheng was also furious. How many times had it been? Ever since this brat suddenly thought of sending Xiao Zhao to school, he had basically never won. Xiao Zhao too, forgetting her uncle when she saw a beauty. This uncle of his was also not bad looking. How was he not better than this brat? In terms of eye candy, he was also good, right? Chapter 1102. Xu Yuancheng's entire body was emitting an aura of anger, as if he was about to swallow Li Xiaoyun whole. Jing Yunjiao saw this and quickly called out second uncle softly, instantly making Xu Yuancheng want to cry but have no tears. If he had known that he had such a niece, he wouldn't have made so much money. If he had brought her back and raised her personally, how could Li Xiaoyun compare to him? Xiao Zhao, this man has a beast's heart. I reluctantly agree to kiss his forehead and cheek, but if he dares to mess around, you can't be soft-hearted. Do you understand? Xu Wencheng said bitterly. The saddest thing in the world was that the girl you loved ran away with another man. Jing Yunjiao nodded silently. Second uncle, Didn't your company run into some problems recently? You can focus on dealing with it. Xiaoyun can send me back. If you're really bored, you can go on blind dates. There are so many girls, there's bound to be one. Before she finished speaking, Xu Wencheng had already opened the door and got in first. Li Xiaoyun watched, raised his eyebrows and smiled. He reached out to open the door for Jing Yunjiao. Second Uncle Xu, you wrongly accused me of messing around. I think I need to take advantage of you. Otherwise, won't I be at a disadvantage? Li Xiaoyun said softly after he personally bent over and fastened her seat belt. Before Jing Yunjiao could react, his breath fell like a storm. Jing Yunjiao instantly felt a little dizzy. Her white face was bright red, as if she couldn't even breathe. Her heart was pounding non-stop. No matter how many times she did it, she couldn't help but have a throbbing feeling towards Li Xiaoyun. Her heart was slightly sweet, and she tried to respond. It was just a slight movement, but it made Li Xiaoyun's breath heavier. His hands slid to her waist dishonestly. He seemed to be out of control and forgot himself. The sky turned dark. After a while, Li Xiaoyun slowly separated. Jing Yunjiao only felt a burst of numbness between his lips. He had used too much strength just now, so it seemed to be a little red and swollen. Not only that, even the clothes on his body became a little messy, and his heart panicked. Second uncle also told me not to be soft-hearted. How can I punish you like this? Jing Yunjiao licked his lips, feeling a little bad. Not only was Hua Tianxian a gossipy woman, but she also had good eyesight. Hua Tianxian was afraid that Hua Tianxian would notice that there was something wrong with Hua Tianxian's lips the moment she saw Hua Tianxian. She would definitely tease Hua Tianxian. Kiss me back. Li Xiaoyun's voice was like the wind in the valley, with a hint of ambiguity, making people's hearts itch. You wish. Jing Yunjiao coldly snorted and tidied up his clothes. He tilted his head and saw Xiaoyun's tense body. After a smirk, he said seriously, men will get sick if they hold it in for too long. Xiaoyun, I'm a doctor. Don't worry. If there's a problem with your body, I'll treat you for free. The corner of Li Xiaoyun's mouth twitched. The best treatment for my illness is to indulge. Do you want to give it a try? Li Xiaoyun said as he reached out and lifted Jing Yunjiao's chin. But my Jiao hasn't matured yet. It seems that I can only be saved when the illness is incurable. Jing Yunjiao's face was as red as an apple. He deliberately joked, do you think my body isn't hot enough? It's not hot or greasy. It's the most perfect body I've ever seen. Li Xiaoyun looked up and down and commented seriously. Oh, it seems that young Master Li has seen a lot of women. Jing Yunjiao raised his voice. Not many, just one, Li Xiaoyun said with a smile as he drove. Fortunately, Hua Tianxian was magnanimous and had not mentioned Qi Zhong for a long time. Not long after, the car stopped at the school gate. Jing Yunjiao's expression darkened as he got out of the car. But just as he was about to leave, Li Xiaoyun grabbed his hand. Wife, I'll pick you up tonight. Li Xiaoyun suddenly changed his words. Jing Yunjiao was taken aback. Then, a sweet feeling rose in his heart. Okay. Li Xiaoyun smiled and watched as she left. Although a university was strict about accommodation, if there were special circumstances, students could take a long leave. This way, they could come and go as they pleased at night. Jing Yunjiao had Xu Yuantarek's help, so it was easy for him to take the leave. He could choose between the Xu family or the school. Yunjiao. Jing Yunjiao entered the campus and was greeted by a boy. He called out to him and said, your brother is here to send you to school again. Chapter 1104. Han Nan stood across from her. He looked very handsome, but Jing Yunjiao didn't understand his words. Brother? Was he talking about Li Xiaoyun? When they met, Li Xiaoyun said he was her fiancé. Why didn't Han Nan believe him? He's my boyfriend. It's normal for him to send me to school. Jing Yunjiao frowned. She walked around Han Nan, but as soon as she walked past him, she heard a thud behind her. Jing Yunjiao turned around to see Han Nan kneeling on one knee with a small red box in his hand. Jing Yunjiao's expression changed. She leaned to the side, a little angry. Why couldn't this person be reasoned with? Why did he reject her so obviously? Why did he still come? Early in the morning, when people saw someone kneeling on the ground and asking for love, they immediately gathered around to cheer. But when they saw that the female lead was Jing Yunjiao, they became even more excited. Yunjiao, I've expressed my intentions too hastily, so it's normal that you can't accept it. Last time during the holidays, my parents also saw you in the car. They really like you and support me. They even specially asked me to buy a ring for you. This ring isn't very complicated or expensive, but it represents my sincerity. If you're willing, then be my girlfriend. I guarantee that I'll always treat you well. After graduation, I'll work hard to earn money so that you can live a happy life, Han Nan said seriously as he reached out his hand and looked at Jing Yunjiao fervently. Jing Yunjiao hated the feeling of being looked at like a monkey. Moreover, the so-called courtship was only meaningful if it was done by the person you loved. I told you, I have a boyfriend. Jing Yunjiao wanted to leave, but she was surrounded by people. There was no way she could turn around. That person is so old. There's no way you'll like him. I think he's your brother or uncle, right? Yunjiao, don't lie to me. Han Nan felt wronged. He felt that his hot-bloodedness had been met with too much indifference. He was also outstanding enough that a lot of girls liked him, but Jing Yunjiao just couldn't be bothered to spare him a glance. When Han Nan said that the person Jing Yunjiao liked was older, everyone's expression turned strange. Now, everyone knew that Jing Yunjiao was Maya Shu's niece. Could it be that Maya Shu was forcing his niece to marry? I heard that those big families like to do this kind of thing. Hearing Han Nan's disdain for Li Xiaoyun's age, Jing Yunjiao's eyes darkened. Han Nan, I don't like to hear anyone speak ill of him. I don't like you. In fact, I'm a little disgusted with you right now. Please see the truth and stop bothering me. She didn't even despise her man, so how could others criticize him? Moreover, Li Xiaoyun was only 9 years older than her, so it wasn't too much. Moreover, she had reincarnated, so the two of them were about the same age. I don't believe you. Do you think I'm not good enough for you? Yunjiao, I've already worked hard. With my current abilities, I'm sure I'll have a good job in 3 years. When that time comes, I'll work hard. Han Nan continued to pester her. Jing Yunjiao felt like she was playing the lute to a cow. You like him, that's your business. Your hard work has nothing to do with me. In my eyes, you can't even compare to a finger of the person I like. No matter what you say, it's useless. After Jing Yunjiao finished speaking, she wanted to leave, but the people in front of her didn't let her. She swept her cold gaze over them, startling them. Only then did they react. Chapter 1105. Jing Yunjiao's rejection was so resolute that it made Huayaro sweat, but at the same time, it was refreshing. Compared to keeping people in suspense, it was more acceptable to simply reject them. In this school, everyone was open-minded and didn't feel that this was a shameful thing. However, Han Nan did not share the same view. I won't give up. All of a sudden, he shouted loudly. Jing Yunjiao, I like you. I will make you realize that I'm serious about you, he added. Jing Yunjiao rubbed his temples speechlessly. What's wrong? Are you upset? Do you know how many girls in this class envy you? Hua Tianxian chuckled as soon as they arrived in class. You're like a dogskin plaster. You can't get through to me. You're so annoying, commented Jing Yunjiao. She felt that there was nothing wrong with pursuing a relationship, but if she caused trouble for the other party, then she would be a little annoyed. Moreover, she had clearly rejected him more than once, but Han Nan kept bothering her time and time again. But she couldn't completely destroy him over such a small matter just to have some peace and quiet. After Jing Yunjiao finished speaking, he noticed that Hua Tianxian was fiddling with 3 small boxes in her hands. He was speechless. Are these gifts from your 3 candidates? Is it appropriate for you to accept them? After Hua Tianxian's blind date, there were still 3 candidates left that she was hesitant about. It did not seem like she was choosing a man, but an item. Ever since school started, the 3 candidates had been showing up every day to give Hua Tianxian trinkets from time to time. The competition was fierce. What's inappropriate about it? Hua Tianxian laughed. You want love, but I want benefits. Naturally, I have to choose someone who can bring the most benefits to the Hua family. Aren't they all the same? They're just doing it for the sake of the family. They're not married yet, so they'll work hard to fight for it. If it's a foregone conclusion, I won't have the chance to appreciate their kindness. I disagree. Jing Yunjiao shook his head. Business doesn't necessarily have to be arranged through marriage. That's right, but it's even better. I don't want the Hua family to be destroyed by my hands. Hua Tianxian looked at the little things in the 3 boxes in front of her. On the surface, she looked satisfied, but she couldn't bring herself to feel happy. Her mother had told her to take her time to choose. There was no need to rush. She had to find the most sincere one. These people were not the heirs of other clans, but they were all outstanding enough. However, they all had the same goal, so they saw through each other too thoroughly, which made her unable to develop a good impression of them. For a person, marriage was like buying something. She really didn't know if it was a good thing. Everyone had their own position, so Jing Yunjiao didn't say much. At this time, Han Nan also walked in and put the things back on her table without a care for anything else. Yunjiao, my parents said that if I succeed, I'll take you home on Saturday. Can you come with me? Han Nan said hesitantly. Jing Yunjiao was even more speechless. Scram, he said coldly. I'm just treating you to a meal. Nothing will happen, Yunjiao. Han Nan still didn't give up. During the month of vacation, he thought a lot and couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he would see Jing Yunjiao's figure and the scene of her in the arms of that man. Every time he thought about it, his chest would ache. It was extremely uncomfortable. He had never liked a girl so much since he was a child. He liked her so much that it drove him crazy. He wanted to take it slow, but Jing Yunjiao suddenly became the mayor's niece. He knew that the longer he delayed, the less chance he had. He absolutely didn't want to see her throw herself into the arms of another man. If that happened, he would die of heartache. Definitely. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.